The house on Ocean Avenue has a long and unsettling history, and everyone who has ever tried to call it home has felt it. A presence inside the walls, something that breathes, watches, waits. This story is not a fantasy. It comes from real testimonies of those who barely escaped its grip. When George and Kathy Letts first saw the house, it looked like the perfect place for a fresh start. The sunlit facade revealed no cracks. The grass was greener than the neighbors, and the windows, shaped like eyes, seemed to smile at them with a warm, inviting glow. But that was just the mask. The moment they stepped through the front door, the house greeted them with a heavy, icy breath of darkness. Kathy paused at the staircase. For a split second, she thought someone was standing on the landing above. A shadow? So quick the mind barely registers it, yet long enough to know it was there. At first, everything could be explained. A long hallway where silence felt too alive. Flies in the middle of winter? Impossible, yet undeniably real. Blue flames flickering inside the fireplace. The cold that no amount of heat could remove. And those small events, neither of them wanted to say out loud. A basement door knocking from the inside. A kitchen table sliding across the floor by itself. Cabinets thrown open as if invisible hands were rummaging through them. Kathy constantly felt watched, as though unseen eyes followed her from room to room. And George began waking up at exactly 3:15 a.m., the very hour when blood once soaked the floors of this home. They didn't know it yet, but these weren't harmless coincidences. These were warnings. And what waited for them next was far, far worse. The longer the Lutz family stayed in the house, the clearer it became. Something inside was watching them. Kathy began noticing impossible things. Deep claw-like scratches across the floor, doors slamming shut by themselves, and stains forming faces on the walls. Even the old DeFeo family photos seemed to change, as if the past was trying to return. George felt the atmosphere growing heavier. Every sound echoed wrong. Every shadow seemed to move. When Father Frank arrived to bless the home, the house reacted instantly. Holy water evaporated on the doorway. The air froze, and the shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls. Upstairs, the priest found the room filled with dead flies. As he began to pray, the light went out. A voice whispered into his ear, "Get out." Red marks burned into his palms, and in the corner, a dark figure stood silently, watching him. Trying not to panic, he hurried downstairs. George felt a wave of dizziness, as if something deep in the house was pulling at him. At the door, the priest warned them, "Do not go into one of the rooms." But as he tried to leave, the doorknob scorched his hand, and his car radio crackled with a chilling message. "He is ours." Kathy watched him speed away, and from the attic above them came a sharp, slow scratching, as if something had just awakened. The house was no longer hiding. It was showing itself, clearly, boldly, and without mercy. George stared into the fogged bathroom mirror when a face appeared behind him, a face that didn't belong to anyone alive. Kathy found barefoot tracks leading across her bedroom floor, as if someone had been standing beside her while she slept. Downstairs, the refrigerator door opened on its own, breathing out a low, unnatural hum. At 3:15 a.m., George woke again, this time to the sound of a child laughing somewhere in the dark. When he reached the kitchen, every chair stood upside down, perfectly aligned, as if arranged by invisible hands. Kathy saw a childlike shadow dash behind a cabinet. George felt whispers clawing into his mind, voices telling him to stay, to surrender, to give in. The door to the basement swung open, releasing a cold, damp breath from the darkness below. A human-shaped silhouette waited in the red glow of the basement hall. Upstairs, candles burst into towering flames. Scratches grew across the walls under Kathy's fingertips, as though something inside the plaster was alive. Old photographs twisted, smiling faces turning darker, more aware. On the attic beams, heavy footsteps echoed, though no one was there. The hall light flickered violently, then went still. Shadows moved without their owners. The walls felt warm, breathing. George spun around, hearing a rasp behind him. Nothing. In the children's room, the windows slammed open, curtains lifting up as if pulled upward by unseen hands. On the fogged glass, a message slowly appeared. "We live here." By the fireplace, George stared into the unnatural blue flames, entranced. A whisper arose from the fire. "Finish it." Kathy reached for him. He shoved her away, eyes dark and empty. His shadow lagged behind him, moving on its own. And in the hallway, a new silhouette appeared. A man holding a gun, just like the murderer who once lived here. The house wasn't just remembering its past, it was repeating itself. The house was beginning to reveal its darker intentions. Kathy stood in the hallway staring into the mirror when a shadow passed behind her, slow, deliberate, human in shape. But when she turned, the hallway was empty. George found a fresh carving in the kitchen table, a single word etched deep into the wood: "Stay." Moments later, a heavy armchair slid violently between them, pushed by a force neither of them could see. Their fear was no longer silent, it was real, loud, undeniable. Kathy opened the hallway closet and found old children's toys inside, dusty, forgotten, and definitely not theirs. George, in the bathroom, watched a clump of long black hair slither down the drain, as if something alive was pulling it. The house shook the attic door, banging it again and again like something trapped inside. Strange symbols formed across the wooden floorboards, wet and glistening, pulsing with a life of their own. George heard whispering calling his name from the darkness. Kathy's reflection in the mirror twisted into something demonic, smiling back at her with a face that wasn't her own. The air grew colder, their breath visible as if winter had entered the walls. Desperate, Kathy called the priest. When he arrived, the weight inside the house shifted, recognizing him. As he began to pray, the walls groaned under an invisible pressure. The cross in his hand grew burning hot, too hot to hold. Then, as if struck by an unseen force, the door slammed shut between him and the Lutz family, locking him inside a dark room. George pounded on the door, shouting, but it wouldn't move. Kathy froze when she saw a tall shadow glide behind him, vanishing into the corridor. Inside the sealed room, the priest watched a message crawl across the wall in red. "He is mine." A cold breath touched the back of his neck. He turned, no one was there. Moments later, the door slowly creaked open. The room was empty. The priest was gone. George felt the voices growing stronger now, sharper, commanding. A dark figure appeared in the hallway, holding a gun, its silhouette eerily resembling Ronald DeFeo. The past was returning, and it wanted to repeat itself. As the figure approached, Kathy grabbed George's arm and yanked him back. The vision evaporated, but on the floor remained a dark, wet stain, a reminder of the blood that once soaked this house. Kathy pressed her ear to the wall when a slow, heavy knocking echoed from inside it, too deliberate to be the house settling. When the plaster crumbled underneath her hand, she and George slid a cabinet aside and uncovered a hidden opening. Behind it lay a small red room, glowing faintly, as if lit from the inside by something breathing. On the floor was an occult symbol, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. As George leaned closer, an invisible force yanked him forward. He staggered back just as a whisper rose from the darkness, a whisper that sounded exactly like his own voice calling him. Kathy froze when she saw his shadow stretch forward independently, reaching out toward her. The floor vibrated beneath them, the walls tightening with pressure. Then the entire house convulsed. Doors slammed, windows bent inward, and the red room collapsed into the wall, sealing itself shut as if it had never existed. Objects flew across the living room, crashing against the walls. A wave of blackness swept across the floor, darting past Kathy's feet. A tall, screaming silhouette spread across the wall, silent, distorted, terrifying. Blue flames shot up from the fireplace, twisting unnaturally. The basement door burst open, spilling thick, black fog. From the fog, a long, shadowed arm crawled forward, dragging itself toward them. George slammed the door, but it swung back open, resisting him like a living creature. The house roared, a deep, violent sound vibrating through every wall. Cracks spread across all the windows at once. Kathy clutched the front door handle, but something held it shut from the other side. George threw his shoulder into it, breaking it free. Cold night air rushed into the corridor, pulling them out of the suffocating darkness. They stumbled onto the porch as the house boomed behind them in fury. Dark figures appeared in the windows, watching, unmoving, as if the house itself had eyes. They ran to their car while the building felt eerily silent. Only one window glowed faintly, and then its curtain slid closed on its own.